Thank you all for coming down this evening. It's the meeting. There was an exhibition on Village Hall on Saturday with all the hard copy of the documents, and as we said as we were going along, the Parish Council will hold another open meeting in the village just to discuss the process of registration. So at this stage, the development consent order has gone into the planning inspector and submitted by the Highways Agency right at the end of last year. It's obviously still quite fluid because they were handing out some documents like this last night at a meeting. They've just sent through some DVDs, but I understand you might already got those. At this stage in the process, you're invited to register as an interested party with the planning inspector. You send out, drop a flyer, which has got the web address that you can go to. It's on the Parish Council's website, and it's a very simple process to follow, because I did it, and it wasn't that difficult. So you click on this link, or go onto that link. If you go onto the Parish Council's website, the link's there, you click on that, it takes you to the portal, and you just follow the 5 boxes to fill in, and the last box that you put in is the box that you put your comments in. So you can see what the Parish Council have put on. So we have, as we were discussing at the previous open meeting, made representations at this time that the consultation process, which lacked transparency and did not, in our view, comply with the Planning Act. During the consultation process, Highways Agency and Jacobs referred to Hilton as being one of the big losers, or one of the losers, in the A14 project, yet there were few references to Hilton in the DCO application, and not a single change of the proposals in response to Hilton's representations. The lack of value for the use of public money in creating a new road when existing roads could be enhanced, including the A428 upgrade, without further destroying the local countryside. The choice of route, which seems to have been predetermined, and why must it pass so close to Hilton, which you can find under volume 7.1 case of the scheme, adds nothing to our understanding of this matter. The design, which calls for the road to be elevated by 3 metres as it passes Hilton with bridges as high as 9 metres, I'll come back to that one in a minute. The lack of effective measures to mitigate ongoing traffic intrusion including rat running, visual noise, air quality and nighttime light pollution. The lack of detail available in documentation, particularly defining mitigation measures, traffic modelling and environmental impact. The construction phase, which without mitigation will bring intolerable levels of heavy goods vehicles through the village, and the lack of any consideration of the intrusion by the scheme into the existing tranquil nature of Hilton Village and of the historical and architectural assets of the village, with the resultant reduction in the quality of life of residents and in contradiction to a stated objective of creating a positive legacy for the residents of Hilton. So that's what the Parish Council has submitted in its registration of interest. In that registration of interest, you're asked whether you would be prepared to attend a preliminary meeting, and you just tick yes. It's no guarantee that you'll be invited to a preliminary meeting by the planning inspector. But
sorry, Peter. Last night we were told that all registered parties would be invited to the preliminary meeting. They'd also be invited to all hearings.
So there's another answer on getting registered, as putting your registration in. You've got until 1 minute to midnight on the 12th of March, which gives you all weekend to do it, which is good. And in the timeline of the DCO that we've just been given, as a reminder, it says people who would like their views seen by the planning inspector must register online before the 12th of March. People who register and comment on the application, known as making a relevant representation, will be invited to attend a preliminary meeting run and chaired by an inspector. Examination and then March to October, November is the examination period which starts to run. People who are registered to have their say are invited to provide more details of their views in writing. So at this moment in time, you don't have to put a big long story. You can put some bullet points, and the planning inspectorate may come back to you and ask for more detailed representation. if they so feel. Planning Inspectorate evaluates the application, considering all the comments the public and stakeholders have made. They then prepare a report on the A14 scheme for the Secretary of State, including a recommendation. And they're saying that between October or November and April, May next year, the Secretary of State decides to refuse or grant the development consent. Probably should have read that the other way around, grant or refuse, but we can always hope. Once a decision has been issued by the Secretary of State, there is a 6-week period in which the decision may be challenged in the High Court. This process of legal challenge is known as judicial review. Okay. The Highways Agency have advised that they will not be making any more, or they will not host any more informal meetings or anything until after the general election. And so they now shut down to any further public comment until after the general election. The bit I was going to come back to on this, which was about road and bridges. In the application at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong here, there are no detailed specifications of the bridges that are going over the road, and there are no detailed specifications of the elevation, or it's changed.
Of all the drawings,
There are engineering drawings.
of all the drawings, there's one that gives a height of what appears to be the ramp up and ramp down of a bridge,
Yes.
which shows it at
9 metres?
9 metres. They're also showing the road now at 3 metres above the current landscape on the main stretch going north of Hilton.
And that was about 1.8, wasn't it?
Well, when we had the last formal consultation last autumn, it was down to 2 metres at that point, where it now is 3. So
That might be an area you want to question in anything that you put on. Mandy, you had your hand up, go on.
It's only just a quick thing.
Yeah.
When I came to the meeting on Saturday, I asked why the bridge had been raised, and they said it was to accommodate double-decker delivery vans like Marks and Spencer, so that was their reasoning for it.
And if the road is, if the road above the landscape is higher as well, so the bridges will have to be higher to accommodate that. So that part of filling the registration form, is everybody happy with how you would go about doing that?
Do you copy it, or do
No.
you want us to reword?
You need to put it in your own words.
Okay, just
Definitely.
thinking what you wrote.
Yes, because they've always, the Highways Agency have always said that if they had a bulk of the same, it would be ignored. Yeah, so you need to.
Could you,
Make
sorry,
it
because I was a bit late, I do
That's right.
apologise. Because you have to write up to a maximum of 500 words, is what you're saying. You simply says, yes, we just got our bullet points in that we have.
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Given that we're now on March the 5th and March 12th is
Quite.
Yeah.
It's not far.
next Thursday,
Yeah, quite,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
you can just put bullet points at this time, and the planning inspector would come back to you if they felt that they
There's
needed.
the point.
I think actually you get the opportunity to submit a more detailed
Yeah.
version later on,
Yes.
once you've registered.
Yes, exactly, yeah, you've
Yeah.
got to get your registration.
Yeah, that's the
fine.
most important thing.
They send you an email back
Yeah.
with a little registration number as well, so
Thank you.
they do acknowledge that they've got your registration on.
Mhm.
So at this moment in time, the working group of Parish Council are going through, I don't know if anybody's looked at the DCO online.
It's a nightmare.
Yes,
Yeah.
700 and, yeah, or 70 documents.
37, 70.
Yeah. And I was looking at the one quite near the end, which was the appendix, which gave the comments that were made by various parties, individuals, parish councils around there, and just the stock answers that were used all the time. So what was the route out? This was done as part of a consultation in year X. And then somebody else further down says, what about route? And it's the same answer, transposed. And so there's no suggestive or creative answers. They're just stock answers saying, this is what we've done, and hard luck. we as a parish council are looking at the noise and air pollution legislation and whether the DCO is compliant with EU standards. The traffic modelling criteria, because in the DCO it says that traffic through Hilton will reduce as a result of this scheme, which isn't the point because
That's why they raised the bridge.
get more traffic through.
Yeah.
Stop them coming over. We'll have the Dukes of Hazzard. Environmental implications, the level of design detail available or lack of it, which goes back to the one drawing with any detail in it. At a meeting that Mark and Kieran were at last night, they were saying that within the scheme there is the ability to make ongoing amendments if they find that it's
That could pass on warrants, couldn't it?
Yes, fine.
oh, there we go. The costs involved in the the costs involved in the examination authority turning down the application are immense. So there's a mechanism where on-the-run design changes can be implemented into the application, but this could still cause delays and may require further budget approval from the Treasury.
It's worth adding actually that the Highways Agency won't do anything to change the design. This will be forced upon them by the examination authority, who are an independent non-government body who will be doing the report to the Secretary of State. If they think there's something wrong with the design, they will make that known, and rather than derail the whole process, they can do this on the run design change. But that will be instigated by the examining authority, not by HA. As far as HA is concerned,
Job's
it's
done.
done.
Yeah.
What's our MP done for us, other than send us a letter asking us to vote for him?
One up on ours.
We'll actually just interject.
Well, shall I just finish a little
Oh,
bit
yeah,
here,
yes,
and then we'll do
My
the.
apologies.
That's all right, John.
Just
So we're also
incensed.
liaising with local authorities, HCC, CCC on matters relating to traffic noise and traffic and noise increasing in Hilton. Keeping you advised and fighting for better mitigation measures for noise, light and air pollution. Right? So that's that's the route that we've been following as a parish council, as we've said all the way along. There was a meeting yesterday that Highways Agency called, and Kieran kindly sent me out some quick notes before, during the course of the afternoon, which I grabbed off this evening. So at that meeting they were saying that 85% of people surveyed say the A14 did need improving, and I see in this document it says they've put that, was it 51% of people, 51% agreed with the proposed solution. So it's not a vast majority. It's just demand a recount, that's what I said. The decision will be made during April 2016. If the go-ahead is given, then the road will open for traffic during 2020. Related work in Huntingdon and elsewhere will be completed after this date, so that was assumed that means bringing down the viaduct and all that sort of thing. Number of houses planned for Northstowe will have to wait until the new road is completed, so there's pressure on the local authorities not to delay it. Their Highways Agency are currently tendering for a design consultancy to take the project through to detail. Further detailed drawings of structures such as bridges will be available later, which is handy, isn't it? No commitment to have these available during the examination period of 6 months, which is also handy because you just can't give a sensible argument, can you? Because it can just change all the time.
Surely there's surely there must be a limit for these on the hop changes they can make. I mean, they obviously can't make huge changes, can they? I mean, they can't change the route.
Well, it's
They can't
described
decide,
to
well,
us
we're going to...
is that something like, you may or may not be aware, but the Girton interchange is a hotbed of disagreements in that there's no access going south onto the M11 from 428 in the new
Yeah.
scheme. This fits inside of HA's remit for laying out this scheme. It require purchasing more land, which they haven't got the budget for. Now, if the examining authority comes back and says, you need to correct this is obviously nonsense,
Yeah.
then that potentially could derail the whole thing, and they would have to go back again and resubmit their application. However, if it was a smaller detail, that a change of a junction
Yeah.
or something like that, has less implication financially, then the chances are that they can just roll it in, and they'll know that at the end of the examination period, which is 6 months. HA, they did say last night, they're taking a risk by appointing their design consultants at this point, because it's obviously cost, until they're not really, the risk is that they get to the end of the examination period and then have to redo it. The fact they are appointing consultants sort of indicates that they're pretty confident that it's going to get waved through. But
And in the last scheme that was pulled following the last election, M11 south of the A14 was in it. I remember watching the DVD of the 10 lanes of road that were going to be from Bar Hill up to Girton. There was going to be 6 lanes of A14, a dual carriage one, or 2 lanes on each side of the road for local traffic. And there was a huge spaghetti type thing that took you down onto the M11. But that was dropped in this particular round because that was quite an expensive gambit, if I remember what the gentleman from the highways told me correctly. Kieran, can you just tell us about this bit that he said near the end of your notes, that he said about impact on Hilton?
yeah, I asked the representative of the Highways Agency, told them we were having this open meeting this evening, said that the general view of parishioners in Hilton is a little bit cynical when it comes to the word consultation, in that it really seems to be informing us what they're going to do, not asking for our opinion. Is there anything he could give me to bring to the meeting tonight to say that to give you more confidence that your opinions and your voices will be heard? His reaction was that, well, Hilton is, you've got what you want, you've got your bunds, you've got your tree planting, you've got nothing to complain about. Is that right, Mark?
He was also sounding quite annoyed that he'd asked the question.
So, you might like to take that into account when you're registering your interest. That as a resident of Hilton, you may not feel satisfied.
Can you give us the name of the person again that you spoke with?
I have it written down somewhere, I can't remember it, but I do have the name.
Because we all want a
But it's
6-lane
these
motorway,
notes.
don't we? That you can, everybody would want that.
Yeah, but these notes are going to go on the website, so I'll talk to Kieran and get them.
I think I'm right in saying that the Highways Agency got more actual comment back from any community. The one that gave most feedback was Hilton. And if you look on the planning inspector website, it's all there. Yet Hilton got the least in terms of being consulted with and then changing the design as a result. They changed other things, but there was the least change as a result of the most comment, especially given the population.
Yeah. And likewise, Kieran and I have met with our local district councillor, and there was a representative from Cambridgeshire County Council, Huntingdon District Council, Highways.
It's the same chap.
Was it the same chap? You might have told me.
And John Bridge.
No, he wasn't at that.
Wasn't he there? I was surprised.
And the comment there, we were talking then about something to help Hilton, that, it's all take from Hilton, and we're basically poo-pooed on that as well. When we came out of that meeting feeling less than hopeful. Didn't think that they were supporting
I
us.
asked why they hadn't done a mock-up and like a design, like a construction design.
Yeah.
And the lady I spoke to said, oh well, they've done it for other parts, other road projects, but they didn't bother to do it for this one, you know, because of the fact of the time. And I got the impression from what they were saying that because this has been rushed through, they're not interested in showing the residents of Hilton what it might actually look like in terms of a constructive model, but they have done that for other projects.
So there's another point you made, that it goes back to this bit about the information that has been available during those initial public exhibitions, and still now in the design consent order. They're not solid, are they? They keep changing. We never had, during the period of open consultation, there were no specific drawings available, no environmental report available, nothing available for people to say this is what's definitely happening.
Just coming back, was that at the exhibition on Saturday?
Yeah.
When you got that response?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, on the point of bunds and trees and the exhibition at the weekend, I asked a question about, they suggested a 2 metre bund on there and planting it. I went, well, 2 metres isn't very high when a lorry is 6 metres high. And obviously planting, well, that's subjective, isn't it? What kind of planting? She said, oh, well, all that stuff will come at the detailed design stage, and then the Parish Council can influence the process. I went, well, it's not exactly sufficient in the first place, let alone influencing it. So anyway, that will be obviously one of the points to be made.
Yes.
I think this is the recurring theme,
Yes,
is that it's very hard to feed back specific bits of information on the design if you haven't got it.
Quite.
And the chances are, we were very disappointed with the level of information that's in the DCO.
Yes.
We had more, actually, more detail
Right.
in drawing form prior to that than when they submitted the main document.
Right.
At least we had some sections, they were wrong, but we had some.
Yes.
Because those sections have changed.
Those sections have changed,
Yes.
yes.
And
So they've told us we're going to get this 2 metre fund, but we
Right.
have no drawings illustrating
Show
it.
it.
Well, the plan showed it to me. They are on plan. it
They're on the
shows.
plan, there's a note, but it'd be very nice to see a section and how that
Yes,
actually
it
looks
would.
in the
I-
landscape.
They agreed that the sections are misleading in the sense that the scale is different between
Yes.
vertical and horizontal.
That's right.
Just on the buttons, I'd sort of tackle them on this. It's not a question of giving Hilton anything here, because the readings which they claim they took, noise readings, in their report, are based upon the noise that Hilton can hear at the moment from the existing A14 1.5 miles away. Therefore, if you bring the road, a 10-lane highway, a 6-lane highway, half the distance towards Hilton, it's obvious that you're going to hear it more than if it's 1.5 miles away.
Yeah.
And so the 2 metre bund is to help, in their view, compensate for to bring the noise level back to what it would be if it was still at 1.5 miles away. So they're not giving us anything. They've got to do that to avoid it being a major issue in their terms.
And they've always said that stuff next to the road isn't going to affect the noise at a distance.
Yeah.
One of the things that came out last night was that they've definitely been urged to spend as little as possible on this development, and wherever they can cut corners, they probably will.
Which is why we haven't got a full design.
And my,
That's right.
oh,
And Andy, go first.
my query on Saturday was, why is it only 2 metres high? Because of these new double-decker transit things, that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
Their comment back was that because most of the road noise would be from the tyres and the lower parts of the vehicles. Now I don't know if there's anything, Ralph and I were discussing how you could, that is measurable,
Yeah.
but to me one of my big concerns is that is not going to be nowhere near enough to act. Also, I thought about it afterwards, and I don't know where it happened, but there was, are you calling it a sound bank or what is it called, this barrier, the sound barrier height thing? The bund.
Yeah.
The bund was and I pictured it afterwards. There was 2 sections of a bund with a small gap through. I don't know what that's for, and that would allow sound through. And then there was another section, but I can't remember where it was, where the bund was on the other side. And does that mean we're not having one, and do we need one there as well?
And that is out that way, if I'm right.
Yeah, it's the bit that, when it gets close to Flintstanton, the bund switches to the other side of the road.
So,
So you're absolutely right, that section we have no bund.
So
That's
it's
definitely
switching
worth
on
pushing
there.
for.
It switches at Oxholme, just north of Oxholme Farm, the 2 metres, and then it runs along on our side of the road up to the Mere Way at 2 metres, and then reduces to 1 metre after the Mere Way, and obviously goes into a cut as it approaches Wood Green.
Yes, there's a cutting at that end.
But it isn't a bad thing, can I just say, I don't think it's a bad thing to only have it on one side, because what you do want is the noise to be bounced off, rather than it bouncing between 2 buttons, on one on each side of the road. It's better for it to hit that and bounce the other way.
So at that point up that side, when it's on that side of the road, noise will get bounced towards Hilton.
It will once it's got past Oxholme Farm.
Yeah. Which is not so
No.
good.
There are some documents which relate to construction noise and vibration studies, and also to operational noise and vibration studies. And on the figures presented, Hilton is virtually out of them. I don't know why that is. Surely it's the only sort of community between the A14, the only community that is affected in that way. So why they've decided that the great majority of the village is not covered, I don't know.
Their modelling suggests the impact on Hilton is going to be negligible.
Right, in some parts improved.
Yeah.
That's their model.
I think
Now what
it's just
criteria
Yeah,
they're
that's fine.
using for that, they're not saying.
Are they putting noise reducing tarmac down?
That's what the lady said on Saturday.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they said so.
But they've already got that down. The current road has got noise reducing time. It's a standard feature of all main dual carriageways, so it's not going to get any better than it is.
It wears out.
Anyways,
Just picking up on that last point at the start, I'm thinking, talking about Hilton being ignored about the impact on it, basically. I think we also need to take into account the fact that it's a 428 is developed further as well. We're actually a village sitting right between the 428 as that gets expanded and where we are. What I wanted to ask you about was regarding the bund. It's 2 metre bund and 3 metres above, the road's going to be 3 metres above the existing ground level. Does that mean the top of the bund is actually 5 metres higher than the ground level? Is that the way it works?
That's the way it should work.
Okay, it's not going 2 metres up from ground level. It is going to be up above the...
Above the roads and surface.
Yeah.
It all adds up together.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And is there a commitment, initially, it was going to be working on that and the planting of it, if there was sufficient money left at the end of the budget, I think. Has there been any commitment now about there being money for that? Because I'm sure right at the very start that was going to be an add-on if there was enough money left after the development.
There was that talk, wasn't there? At one point there was not going to be any ring fencing with funds.
No,
designed for
no, the
environment.
first meeting there wasn't any ring fencing for that.
Well, they're showing landscaping on the plan.
Okay.
Now, that'll be costed, and I suspect if it comes in over the top, those are the sort of things that might be watered down.
Yeah, so we almost need a guarantee that that will actually be included.
Yeah.
That's
would be
imperative that is there, not to be knocked off the
if you've got
the
20
budget
quid
goes
left
too
at the
much.
end,
Yeah,
But
not an optional.
They made it clear last night that they're spending as little as possible.
Yeah.
And that as far as they're concerned, the plan's in, they don't see any reason to change it. So we have to fight that.
What sort of landscaping are they considering putting in?
Well, they do the small trees because they grow better.
2 foot 6 shrubs.
Yeah, because they grow better.
Into big trees eventually.
As you know, the Parish Council, a while ago, when the last road was coming through, commissioned a professional sound survey, very comprehensive, 70-odd pages of that, and that was when the A14 was slightly further north, very slightly, and certainly a lot lower. So I'm guessing that it's going to be worse than that. That was very comprehensive by a professional, and they showed that there would be a definitely sound impact here. Importantly, in that, gave a very comprehensive set of mitigating products that can actually mitigate that sound, which the highways agency always poo-poo, saying you can't mitigate sound at that distance. But he's professional. He gave us 6 commercial products at that point that would make a significant difference, and these are double-skinned reflective barriers, not an earth bun, but something that is very much designed to reflect the sound up and away. So I'm guessing that's the bare minimum that we should be pushing for. I was just wondering, that was a while ago now, whether or not it would be worth commissioning him to update that in the light of new technologies, because it can only get better, and it's obviously slightly nearer, and that gives us an up-to-date, factual scientific document, if you want to put it like that we can go in and fight with, rather than hearsay. What's the thought on that?
I think the point is actually about those. So as opposed to buns, they're barriers, and they've got sound absorption, which is what they use on the continent. And that surely is better if they're going to absorb the sound rather than actually have it over the bund, where it's actually just going to disappear into the air.
And there has never been an appetite by the Highways Agency to put those type of barriers along the A14. Throughout the last process of the last road, they were not interested in those at all.
Well, I think the point's been made, they're not interested in anything because it's lowest cost everywhere they can possibly get away with, and our job is to force them in some respect to take account of things that can make a difference. They'll get away with it.
The cost is no more if you actually take into consideration future maintenance.
Good point.
So is that a possibility to get that updated?
Well, I've done that already.
In terms of doing any scientific confining sound and issues that is affecting Hilton, what we're trying to do at the moment is fully understand what the legislation says, the European legislation and the legislation that the Highways Agency are working to. That's where we are at the moment. If we, once we get a handle on that, then we have discussed rerunning some kind of scientific study to see whether we do actually have a case, a hard case to put in this examination period.
I think as he's an international sound consultant, I guess he's well versed with the legislation, and it gets consulted in lots of these sorts of schemes, so that will be helpful. But the fact that he's put in 90% of the work already, then updating that will be certainly a lot lower cost. So you hit sort of 2 positives there. He can advise you because he does this all the time and knows that legislation. And secondly, he can give us an update on latest technologies and the real effect it can be.
Surely, the villagers could actually take a vote on whether they're prepared to meet the cost, if we know what the cost is going to be.
Yeah.
I think, as Alan has actually just said, most of the cost has already been incurred in the original report. The updating, I think, is probably a fairly nominal additional cost.
I've got a copy, if anybody wants to take a look at it here. So it's 70-odd pages, of very comprehensive.
That's been circulated. I mean, the working group are aware of the content of that report.
Well, the rest of the village aren't, I'm saying.
Yeah, but have they done anything about it?
Well, that's the same. We're trying to figure out the
trying to put it in
legislation.
a context.
It may not be, for instance, that we get anywhere near that trigger point where they have to do something. They're legally obliged to do something.
Right.
So we think we hear noise from the road now.
I've had a good look at the legislation and it's just really wishy-washy.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We've got the European legislation, we've got the UK one that the Highways Agency is working to. They've both got different numbers of the minimum dB level, where it triggers this legal obligation for the local authorities to solve the problem.
Or the Highways Agency.
So before we go spending a load of money on reports, we've got to be absolutely clear that we are going to be anywhere near that trigger point.
But couldn't we find out how much the supplemental report is going to be? And then we can make a decision.
Well, what we really need I agree with what was done originally, but that was with the existing situation. What we really need is to try and produce a situation which reflects what it will be like when the road is half the distance away. That's what. So we need somewhere along where they've got the marker along the 1040. We really need the readings there to be giving an idea of the noise.
This report actually gives.
It doesn't. Not in my view, it doesn't.
It models where the road was going to go from at that distance, and that was slightly further away. But
yeah.
It's the starting point, isn't it?
It is, and you've also got the highway agency who've also claimed they've done readings.
Oh, yes,
so you've now got conflicting data.
Yeah.
You use your own experts, and you know.
We need experts surely on our side.
No, we should. But if you remember where we are, we were going to try and get all the information together first, and then take it to the next stage.
Do they build in prevailing wind direction and things like that?
They do it
because they'll be saying that the prevailing wind will be blowing the noise away from us.
No, they don't mention that, oddly enough. I haven't seen that mentioned.
But they do it over a number of, you have to test over a number of days, 17-hour periods, and then you mount up all the information and see what the average is.
And there are 3 sets of readings. There's day, evening and night. And the interesting thing they quote is a nighttime figure of 52 decibels is the existing situation they claim. So that's their marker for, checking is how much better or worse it will be when the road comes closer. So they're not starting from a normal, quiet country situation because we've already got that background noise from the A14.
I think that on one of their maps they had, on Saturday, they had a sort of silent contour of 45 decibels, which went sort of just fell short of the village in some cases, but very, very, very close to it. But I don't know how that 45 compares with what it is now, or how realistic 45 is anyway.
No, it's not. The decibel increase wasn't that great, if I remember.
No, it's 50, they quote 52 now. And that's where that bund thing comes in, where they say, well, because we're putting that in, it won't be much different than the 52 you're getting at the moment.
That's arguable, though, isn't it?
It is, but you need professional advice.
Well, that's what we're saying. That's what I think we need an update on the report, don't we?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you.
We will find out how much it costs. I had a thought then.
Whilst just on the point, the other point is it's not only noise, but it's visual impact, isn't it?
Yes.
So it still comes back to the point, 2 metres doesn't hide the great big lorries coming through, whereas at the moment we've got lovely countryside, notwithstanding the fact, rather look at a bund which is a bit taller with some nice trees, depending on what sort of trees, are they deciduous or are they evergreen, and all that, then looking at some lorries going past. So the bund still doesn't really address that element of visual impact. So.
No, because how tall is a double-decker lorry?
Well, and also what they're going to put in is going to be no higher than 2'6", is it?
Trees?
Yeah, anything. They're not going to put 10-foot trees in because they're going to cost them too much.
Exactly, that's what I said to the lady on Saturday.
Well, the lady on Saturday told me, you'll see the tops of the lorries. We might not see the cars, but you'll see the tops of the lorries. So I said, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for giving that, especially when the lorries have streets of lights on the top as well. And the cars going over the bridges.
Have there been any discussion with the county about reducing the lorries through the village?
Yes.
Because this is just as much a problem as the A14 is, as far as I can see.
Being reasonable people, we could go to them saying, Highways Agency has already admitted that we are the big loser here. Surely they can give us something in return and have the weight limit 24 hours on the road through the village. But they were completely disinterested, weren't they? Now previously, the local authority had taken it to a hearing with the local businesses, the dairy, marshals,
Mick George.
Actually, Mick George wasn't involved in that one, but there was another one, Hanson. And they got to a compromise, which is the current nighttime ban. We will push this because I think it is eventually something we will win on. Basically, that's a B road, and it's coming right through the middle of our community. So, one way or another, we have to find a solution to that. So it may not happen.
But for Mick George to get to St Ives, should this village be close to it, he's got a pretty long detour.
You mentioned that.
Up the 1198 and then connect with the
Old A14.
Yeah, with the old A14 and then along. I can't see that happening.
Well, one of the reasons why the argument stood for the vehicles to come through Hilton was that the A14 was always congested. That was one of the points that's will go away. Why should a community of 1,000 people be impacted for the commercial interest of one or two businesses? It doesn't really make too much sense. Now, at the time, 12 years ago, when this was last fought, they were big employers. They had a fair bit of weight in the community, in this local community. But things have changed, so we will keep pushing away up this.
But there was little advertised.
Well, I did a survey for Kieran on probably 6 occasions, maybe more, and there is a 20-ton lorry or an Arctic goes through this village every 90 seconds.
And
there is a way around that quite easily. If you just there's no parking restrictions on Potter Road, not familiar. You could quite easily just buy a car, second-hand car, hardly any money, you just park it there. Put one on the other side. As long as it's still soon stop going through there.
There was the police recently put a box up by the pub, and over a 7-day period, I haven't got the figures, but there was something like 28,000 vehicles came through the village. There's a phenomenal amount, of which 2/3 were speeding. And so we did ask for them to do some actual enforcement. I've seen them out a couple of times.
Yesterday morning at it was exactly 6:30, which I was out with the dog, and 3 Arctics went through the village at 6:30 yesterday morning.
It's 7 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly 6:30. They just went through the village, 3 of them, one after another.
And do we know about construction vehicles and such like during the process? Because it's going to be a 4-year period, isn't it, whatever it is? Presumably they're not allowed to use our roads, or?
They can't advise us at the moment.
Oh, right, okay.
This is in the hands of the contractors that they finally appoint.
Yeah.
All they said was that they will stipulate a set criteria that they will have to stick to.
Right.
But they couldn't give us any detail on that at this point.
And the idea, I think, was that they were supposed to use the route as their traffic. So they take the traffic up and down the route that they're building.
Oh, I see.
But they asked that a meeting we had with Highways at Hemingford.
Yeah.
They said if it comes to that stage, they would come out and consult with villagers about the implications of the process.
But there was a map there, wasn't there, showing the route that they thought that the construction lorries would take. But I gather, or I can imagine, that that's not the case necessarily now, because that was pre-DCO. That was September, wasn't it?
I've got the stats for the figures for the traffic through from the survey, the outline ones. There were, over the week period, 2,270 commercial vehicles over 2 metres and under 3 metres, and 1,696 over 3 metres. So that's nearly 4,000 lorries coming through during that period. And that's out of a total of 28,300 vehicles through the village. So it's a decent percentage, and for those large vehicles it's high. And you're right, the speeding was over 36% in general, and I know it's over 50% in one direction. So,
can I ask where these articulated lorries are going to go once the A14 6-lane built? Are they going to carry on going through Hilton? Or are they supposed to go somewhere else?
At the moment, that is, unless we do something about it, yes.
Yeah, because they can't get on the new A14 unless they go to Swavely, and they've got to come all the way from Swavely from St Ives in order to go west. Sorry.
Yes, and yes,
they're not going to do that.
Well, they can put the old A14, can't they?
Yeah, but where to?
They can go
So
up.
1198.
Yeah.
And now that would be our best hope.
So it's not like there isn't an alternative, it's just a little bit
Longer. We kind of equated it to Packworth, where you've got a big route round it.
Yes.
But Packworth is so unpleasant to drive through in terms of the road traffic calming, that it's a much quicker route to go around the outside. So you've got to try and make it as difficult to go through Hilton as it is at Packworth, which is what
Or slipping around as a design alteration later on where there's one and they're existing.
Yeah. And Packworth's at 20 miles per hour as well, so there's all sorts of things that can be done, but at the end, all finance, wasn't it? They felt that we could have it, but you're paying for it.
Traffic calming?
Yes. Was that in the message? There was no interest as far as they were concerned to spend their money, but they might support us if we found the money.
Yeah, because we were told that you should look at what's happened in the past with the traffic calming measures that were put in, and the resistance to, at that time, any type of chicanery or bumps in the road because of the noise that the bumps in the road would make. And that's where it was. And there were better designs of traffic calming and that, but it would have to be down to local funding. And there was not interest, I think that would be fair to say, in doing anything about the HGVs at this time. Would you agree?
Not from their standpoint. Local authorities,
Yeah.
Cambridgeshire County Council, London District Council, not interested in taking it on our behalf. Peter, can I just come back to the whole thing about the noise?
Yeah.
I don't think we dealt with that properly. Where we are at the moment is we are going through this DCO document, so it's 770 documents.
Yeah, documents.
It's a lot of work. Eventually, where we're hoping to get to is to have 4 or 5, half a dozen issues that we can really hang our hat on and say, right, this is where we can apply some leverage. And one of those we have spoken about is redoing this study. So it's not like we haven't considered it. We've got this 6-month examination period. We want to put the work in now to get to the point whereby what we submit has some real teeth. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. What we'd like from many people is can be bothered to read the documents. If you find anything yourself which you think could be useful, let us know, because it's a big undertaking which we're a limited number of people trying to do. It would be very helpful if anybody could pick out anything and say, oh, hang on a second, this is just not right. It contravenes this piece of legislation.
Well, what date do you have to make your submission on this stuff?
Well, we wait with the registration.
The registration is 12th of March.
March. We would then be invited to write what they say.
The examination period is 6 months.
Yeah.
So we go to the preliminary meeting and hear that bit.
Yeah. And
then there'll be other hearings. There'll be issue-related hearings.
Right.
And then there'll be general open floor hearings.
Okay.
There's a third type which we won't necessarily get invited to, which is to do with the compulsory purchase and people involved in that. So at some point in that 6-month period, we are going to have to submit a document, which hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
The date we're working to is to have the first draft ready by the 19th of this month.
Oh, wow.
So it's obviously not going to be fully complete,
Yeah.
things like studies and the like, but it'll at least give us a framework to work with.
Yeah, because they say from when the examination period begins, which is after the 12th of March, people who have registered to have their say are invited to provide more details of their views in writing. So that's what this document we're looking to have the draft by the 19th of March is there to give more meat to these boundaries. Yeah.
Is our revered Member of Parliament going to assist us in any of our endeavours?
We've met with him. He has told us that he supports Hilton's position, and if there is something that he would that we would like him to help us with, we're to tell him. We've kept him informed of where we are so far, but there's nothing public from him yet.
I mean, whether it's a good time to approaching the election coming up.
Yes.
Just some baby steps.
Because last time we saw him, he did know that he had a lot of responses. He said something like, the artist secretary, and they had 40 responses, 38 from Hilton. So he does know who we are. So
It's a card we'll play at some point, I'm sure, and if not that one, then it'll be the press one.
There's nothing to stop any of us talking to him and making our views known. The more that do it, the better.
Again, yeah, like with this.
Going to ruin his Saturday mornings in his office for him.
go to his yes.
No,
surgery. Yeah. So and it's been the message all the way along. There's more people that make a point that we can see, or they can see us from Hilton, the better. Because they've got to get the feeling that there are unhappy people in Hilton.
The planning system they're using to submit this is new. It's only recently come about. And it's designed to streamline the process, to have less public consultation, if you like, to make it easier to get these things through. So I spoke to some people that campaigned against there's a road in Norwich that's about 6 months ahead of us in terms of planning. And they said at this stage the most important thing is that as many people as possible register as an interested party, even if it's just a few bullet points. It's numbers that count. They don't then have to follow it up.
No.
Some people will, the working group will, the Parish Council will. So, but the more people that register now is likely to have a bigger impact on the planning spectrum than anything else. Yeah. That's really important, just for a few bullet point reasons.
So please.
Can I ask about, just slightly concerned that we go to too many scattergun effects, that everybody has a particular view about different parts, and whether the Parish Council should direct some of those views or encourage through the internet now that people do log on to this site. And I like Kieran's comments about stopping the traffic going through. We won't be able to stop the A14, it's going to happen now. We can only do a small part to maybe make it better for us. But that, I don't think the highways are involved with the traffic, heavy traffic going through the village. No. In which case that's the district council. In which case we've got a damn sight more power there, well, hopefully, and even with the people who are sending the traffic. And I think if we can cut that out with maybe the low-level buns, it might give us some saving grace. So I think that's a definite that we should all do. I'm not quite sure about some of the trees. When I spoke about the trees to Rosa, was the name, she very kindly rang me back on Tuesday to say that the bund on this side that wasn't there because the ground was higher, therefore we wouldn't need it. But she did say the trees were quite high, that the trees were going to be about 12 foot or high level trees rather than shrubbery, that they're going to build along where it meets the 1198 going into blocking us off from St Ives. So she indicated that was quite high trees. So rather than saying, are you going to put shrubs, we should more say, we were told there was going to be high trees. Can you please confirm this?
Yeah. Last night they told us the complete opposite.
Did they?
Yeah, they said it wouldn't be big trees, it would be saplings, and the reason for that is the bigger the trees, the more likely they are to die.
Well, definitely Rosa said it would not be, it would be high trees.
So then, once again,
but
mixed messages,
yeah,
which we've had all the way along.
Yeah, it makes you think, if someone's giving this information, are they getting that from, where are they getting that information from? I mean, they're obviously getting it from different sources.
It's quite obvious from individuals, and then the individuals move on 3 months later, so it's very hard to pin anybody down.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could capitalise on the election coming up in a more sort of structured and designed way, that there's going to be, when the PERDA sessions start, obviously the discussions will stop with certain parties, but John Glee will be out there electioneering, to have a campaign of knowing where he's electioneering, to have people attend and ask him public guarded questions of him, because that's the point when he can make commitments or statements and they'll be on camera and all those good things. And we keep hitting him, because everything behind closed doors, he'll nod and say, yes, that's very good, of course I will. But actually, as we found out at the last election, even some of the things they say in public, they renege on. So how about having a campaign to actually, go after him in some respects, not in a malicious way, but say, you know, he's doing an election statement in Huntingdon or St Ives or something, to have somebody there from the working group at each one and ask him a very specific question. That's just a thought.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah.
Is that a good idea, anybody?
I think it's a great idea. Put him on the spot.
Yeah.
Making-
Well, they'll get a chance, because very rarely they are out in public and making commitments, because they're just desperate for their own jobs.
I think you have to be slightly careful because, of course, a lot of communities north of here are quite happy with what's going on, so you have to be a bit...
Do I care?
No, I don't.
No, let's go and hit him then. So I'm not.
I'm not
going to be careful talking to John. We have to look after ourselves.
Consider it.
Have we defined as a village actually what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to ask for?
That's a good question.
Because I think that's quite important that everybody's sort of singing from the same hymn sheet.
Last time we had an open meeting, we collected all the views, patted them into some kind of form, and that's the basis of what the Parish Council have been pushing for. So in other words, mitigation very much high on the list. It's summed up very much by the statement that we've put in as part of our registration. Do you all still feel that that is the way the Parish Council should pursue this?
I think it's the only thing we've got left now, isn't it? Because we're not going to alter the route, are we? So let's go for the mitigation.
Not wishing to point out the late attendance.
Am I right that they have brought it nearer to us solely because they've straightened the road out, which is then costing them X amount of £1 million less because of the distance?
I've asked them that many times and always been told I'll get an answer later but never got one. And I've confronted them with it as well and still they won't give me an answer. Because it's got to be, it's the cheapest route, in my opinion.
Yeah, so therefore they've straightened it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's a land deal thing.
I think it's the way it approaches the cutter to Wood Green. Is that I think it's just to do with how much material it needs removing from the cutter and pushing it out down to make funds and to lift the road. So it's, somebody's just done that calculation in terms of how much mass to move, and that was the most expedient place to put it. It looks like that. But
do you know why they're raising the road?
Normally they put it down to drainage. They need the height to get the water off to go into the bund, the holding reservoirs, ponds.
I asked that question, I was told drainage.
Well, they haven't quite
Although
explained.
it drains at the moment in that level.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're bigger roads, and it's now. I think the thing is, in the old days, you were allowed runoff from roads, weren't you? Straight onto the side. I think now it has to go into a holding bund or a pond, so it can then go into the drainage in a sort of. So, if anything got spilt, you can contain it before it then goes into the rivers. So I think that's the reason. But
and it has to cope with a 1 in 100 year massive downpour, freak conditions. It has to cope with that, and the road not closed. At the moment, if we had those conditions in the current A14, chances are it will close. I think there was an incident just before Christmas. That's quite a difficult thing. You think that once in 100 years, it has to be able to deal with that extreme condition without closing the road. That's a big design constraint.
Is it raised all the way through then?
It's raised from where it pops out the cutting all the way past it drops a bit as it approaches the side of the old tip. So it's not always 3 metres above.
And the 100-year thing is also being enhanced to take account of predictions for global warming.
And have they said when we're going to be inconvenienced when they start this part of the road? Or where are they starting?
The schedule hasn't been.
Well, they do say that
they haven't got contract yet.
They say that the section between the East Coast Main Line to Swavesey starting in 2017.
Which is offered.
Yes.
Yeah, persuaded in 2017. And that's when they would be coming out doing these consultations. with the local villagers to talk about what's going to happen.
But when we spoke before, they were talking about having about 3 contractors, weren't they?
Yeah.
And therefore they each had their own section. So rather than just starting at one end and working down, each contractor would have a 5-mile section, presumably. And it presumably depends on who you've got in your area as to how good a contractor they are. Potentially.
And potentially you could have a contractor down at the Bar Hill end, contractor up at the Buckingham end, and the contractor doing the middle bit.
Yeah. Just going back to a simple message, that leaflet that you've done for tonight, is that going to go specifically onto the website?
It is specifically on the website.
Yes, that was yes.
Yes, it's specifically on the website.
Clearly, on the front page.
On the front page it says go to the A14.
Okay.
And it's
So it's
under,
nice and easy.
it's under the PC registration.
Is that 500 words?
Sorry?
Is that 500 words?
I think less.
No, less.
500 words or less.
In school days, 450 was always a page, wasn't it? So I mean,
yes. And it is shrunk to try and get 2 on 1 page.
Yeah.
I understand why we've done this, and it's shown what the council have done. But looking through the points, there's about 4 of them that are historic. If we tell them they've not been transparent, they'll tell us yes they have. So that there's no definable answer within it, just 2 different viewpoints of the same subject. And certainly 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, they're almost historic now, they've gone. They're going to build a bridge, it's going to go so high. And whereas some of them, whereby you can mitigate, you can create things, you can get rid of the lorries, those can have more of a direct effect still. But I think
lorries won't be on the A14.
I understand. I do understand that.
The DCO won't pay any attention to.
No, I do understand what you mean. I do understand that. But by saying that the consultation process lacked transparency, yes, it did, but it's gone. And whatever we say, they're not going to take any notice
No,
of it.
I'm not sure. The planning inspectorate has to test the DCO to make sure it complied with the law.
And will they say it didn't?
Well, I think we've got a good case because Hilton registered more objections than any other community, and yet nothing's happened. So I think there's a good case to challenge that.
And the consequence of doing that means they will abandon it?
They may require the highways agency to reconsult properly,
okay.
For example.
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it happened last time round.
But that is one of the things that happened.
That's what started.
Yeah.
So the highways agency now have got to stand up and be tested by the planning inspectorate. It's up to us to tell the planning inspectorate why we think they've done it wrong.
And if you look at, say, the lack of value for the use of public money, well, you have a view, and I agree the 412 is more sensible, but I'm not sure you're going to get very far with that point. They'll either believe it is good value or not. I'm just really questioning the question, should we be concentrating on some major issues that we can affect more than stating again the weakness of what's happened this time?
Would that point be expanded to say about the fact that locally we're going to have cuts to services because our local authority and our county council have put money into the A14. So for a national benefit we're going to have be locally disadvantaged.
Right.
And why has that been allowed to happen?
They have no money to help us mitigate traffic in the existing village scenario, let alone, and they're proposing to spend this money on the new road.
But they're going to. We're not going to stop it.
They haven't got the money anyway.
Well, whatever. I'd have preferred to have heard something that we can stop the rat runs that, in my view, are going to happen in Gravely Road particularly, as you
So
well
rat
down
galley,
it. And they say
their
it's not going to
response
happen.
to that, I think, would be, because I've asked them about that, would be their modelling shows that the impact on us for rat running will reduce as a result of the A14. So if you believe that to be untrue or unlikely, you need to make that point when you register as an interested party.
Which I've said every time I've seen them. But I would have thought the local authority...
You've been talking to the highways agency up till now.
Indeed.
You need to talk to the planning inspectorate because they're going to test the highways agency on that point, if you do.
But the changes that they're proposing in Huntingdon to create a terrible complex junction means it's going to influence the routes that people take particularly from St Ives, Bens down to the Henfords. And one of the routes is through Hilton. It will add about 2.5 miles to the journey, but I should imagine it would cut down the time that people will spend in trying to get through Huntingdon.
And that's the argument that the Highways Agency are saying in their application that there is a reduction in traffic through Hilton, so you need to challenge it.
Yes.
But it's always sort of based on modelling, isn't it? I suppose.
Based on the Highways Agency's modelling.
It's based on their modelling of what's going on the A14 there. And obviously if you remove the junction at where the 1040 A14 is at the moment, they can't come off, so therefore there'll be less traffic from the A14 joining the 1040. That isn't really the question. It's all the other traffic from these new developments which are under the county council's jurisdiction.
They're saying they want the new A14 to take another 30% of traffic of what it's taking at this moment in time.
But there's no end to cynicism, is there? You don't know how impartial are these inspectors going to be?
Well, last time
we don't know who they are. We
Last
don't
time
know
they-
their background.
last
Or do
time-
they have a road haulage background like Mr. Bridge? You know, with a vested interest in getting this lot passed through. You know, one doesn't know.
Last time they required the Highways Agency to reconsult.
Did they? Was that the Norwich road?
No, with the previous
Oh, sorry.
A14.
Yeah.
They made the Highways Agency go back and reconsult.
Who's they?
The planning inspector.
I think we had to recognise that the planning inspector will make certain recommendations. He might well agree with some of our points, but all he's going to do is send a report in to the government minister, and the government minister is going to make up his own mind about it. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but I'm afraid that even if he persuades the inspector, he's not necessarily going to persuade the government minister.
Yeah, very true.
Well, it's slightly different this time. This is a DCO thing, right? So we were told last night that the examining authority are completely independent. They have nothing to do with the government. They work with to no ministry, and therefore they will be, as you quite rightly say, Andrew, advising the Secretary of State when it comes to making a decision. But if they strongly recommend that the design is changed, and it's been public, then I think that Secretary of State would have to go along with it.
Yeah, so the planning
have a go.
Is one of the reasons that the HA are employing a design consultancy to make it harder for the this examining body to get the decisions reversed?
It's just last night that this is a risk for them because they're taking on a cost which was until they get the final decision in April 2016, then they won't know for sure whether that work will be wasted or not. So I think they're so confident that it's going to get way through that they're prepared to do it, and because it has to go so fast, they're trying to steal a march on time, I think.
It seems to me like that it's also extra pressure on the people who could turn around and get things changed by saying, well, all the design work's done and paid for. It's a financial thing.
In terms of, how we have very little confidence in the modelling that the Highways Agency have done of like rack runs and everything. So it's very difficult to counter-say that unless you've got sort of experts and access to modelling. Have we looked at, is there, it sounds like it's probably unfeasible to get it, but is there any way we can sort of find out something that has a bit of weight behind it in terms of modelling?
Well, what we're trying to do now is pull together the criteria that they've done their modelling on. So does it, for instance, how far in the future does it predict? Does it account for all the big housing developments going on? Does it predict, for instance, what will happen, the implications of the A428? Those kind of things. So we're just trying to figure out what they've taken into account and what they haven't. If there's something obviously glaring that they haven't taken into account, then that's a good starting point for us to
Particularly, I was wondering, you know, because they've got a vested interest, haven't they, in whatever however they've done that, as you say, it's what they've put in at the front. But there could be all sorts of things that you'd never uncover where they've decided to determine that traffic will flow. So actually, if you get an expert who's starting from a different stance, you could have a very different picture, even more than we could ever unpick. But I don't know, you know, are there ways of getting that modelling done by somebody, an expert, sort of looking at it from a perspective on our behalf or not?
But have we got access to their modelling? Surely that's our right to see it.
The modelling that they've done, I believe, that's included in the report?
Was it funded by Cambridgeshire Council?
Yes, that's right. Cambridgeshire Council have done the modelling. They've got the data, the raw data as to how many vehicles.
They did say it's quite complex. They were using mobile phones and things and tracking people's movements and things. So it's a big project. So I don't think it's.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It isn't feasible.
I think the best you could do is read their report.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could.
And try and unpick some of their assumptions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you want to be, like to add some cynicism to this, the Highways Agency obviously did traffic modelling when it built the A14 as it is, and
there weren't mobile phones yet. It was fairly.
I'm afraid if we face facts, we're just really a bunch of amateurs playing around with good ideas. What we need is a fighting fund and the employment of a proper planning consultant to act on our behalf, going through all these documents and pulling together all the strands of the arguments that we've put together. That's money. And I should imagine if you sent a circular around the village asking for a contribution, I think it'd be a dismal response. Unfortunately, that's where we are.
The Highways Agency have had how many years to prepare this?
Yeah, exactly. And the
put into the
consultants that they've
DCA,
been pulling in.
you have a month to have a reading, decide you want to be a registered party, and then there's a 6-month period of time that it's examined, which is grossly unfair.
Crazy for your point of view.
Yeah. And I know that the one thing that we did know from the local authorities is that their views are much the same in terms of having to divert resource to have to review it. But that's the way it is.
But the Offords managed to get a judicial review a few years ago.
They did.
And set the whole scheme back a good 9 to 12 months.
Yeah, but they had a solicitor.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Lived in the village there.
They had professional.
Did it for nothing for
It was a procedural point, though, wasn't it? It wasn't about the
Well,
scheme.
yeah,
It was
a barrister
procedural
or
point.
At least some of them winkled out the weaknesses.
The consultations.
They didn't follow the proper procedure.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be turfed out of the hall because I think there's something on, isn't there?
Pilates, apparently.
Pilates, so.
We think there's a confusion, but
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Pilates starts at 9:30 to 11, but it's
I just wanted to express my thanks to all you guys for all the hours that you put in. Anybody who's involved in reading it, sorting it out, a very special thanks, because I know it must be very weighty and take a lot of effort. And just to say thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
If you have any views, please do let us know. Go email Joe, the clerk, and we'll let, when we've got the things done, we'll let you know what it says.
it's numbers, isn't it? We have to go and talk to our neighbours.
Oh yeah.
It's obviously a good turn tonight, but every meeting seems to be less people because it's the same thing, but you just get worn down, don't you? So
That's a good idea.
Please talk to your friends, neighbours, and ask them.
invite them round for a coffee.
Because it is, as it was said earlier, you don't have to do anything more. You don't have to take it further. But if there's shown that there is this little pocket of resistance still, or upset, it might count for something.
Can we put something on the village hall? Can we put something on the notice board to encourage people to do? Because 30 people out of 800 that we've got here is pretty pathetic.
Yeah. Well, we had 100 last time, so I would say everyone sort of gets.
The others would probably die.
Yeah. I mean, the notice that came round your house is on the notice board.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can simplify it, because obviously 3/4 of that is now gone. The exhibition's gone, the public meeting's gone. So whether we just put a strip across, do it by the 12th.
This is your last chance.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, if you miss this,
Yes.
you're out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it probably will happen, but for the sake of very little action,
Absolutely,
you can just.
You'll do something.
Why give up? Yeah, there's very little more to do.
You've done the hard work.
One
follow the
question that I was, when I registered my interest already, you put your bullet points down. Are they the only bullet points that you can then contribute on?
No, it's my understanding. You can.
It says you can enlarge on those points,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if you could add other.
My understanding is that you can, but I haven't tested that.
Make your points broad.
You just said as far as
I've already done it.
Yeah.
But no, it's just if you're telling someone, if you're asking someone to do this, and you say that you just put one, you know.
I'm not happy with the A14.
Well,
But then you can write as much as you like afterwards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do the other village? I know we contact the other villages. Is there anything that they're doing that we can piggyback on? Offords and Brampton and.
Offords, Brampton's taken a very different view. They just want to stop it. That's all they're interested in.
Right. Okay.
And there's a big part of me that has sympathy with that.
Yeah.
So they're focusing very much on the health aspects, which clearly is going to affect them probably more than us.
Yeah.
They're trying to challenge it on that basis to stop it.
Okay. Not a lot of use to us, really, is it?
No, it isn't.
No.
I went along to
I personally hope they succeed.
From that, I gather the offers you've given up, have they?
They seem a lot quieter.
There's nothing in the paper, in the Hunts Post about offers.
I think she's busy working London, she said.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.